Welcome to the Memory Book. I'm Carol. This channel is dedicated to preserving the stories of extraordinary lives that deserve to be remembered with love and respect. Here, we honor unforgettable figures from film, music, television, and culture, reflecting on their journey, their influence, and the legacy they left behind. Every tribute helps keep their memory alive for generations to come. George Segal passed away 5 years ago this week at the age of 87. Leaving behind a body of work that felt quietly effortless yet deeply grounded in human emotion. Across decades of film and television, he built a career defined not by spectacle, but by a natural presence that made characters feel familiar and real. One of his most acclaimed early performances came in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, where he earned an Academy Award nomination and showed he could match intensity with some of the most powerful dramatic actors of his time. Yet Segal's range extended far beyond drama. He had a lightness and timing that made him just as convincing in comedy, especially later in his career when television introduced him to new generations of viewers. Many came to know him through the sharp workplace humor of Just Shoot Me, where his wit and charm fit seamlessly into ensemble storytelling. In his later years, he became widely loved as the warm, easygoing grandfather in The Goldbergs, a role that carried a gentle nostalgia and affection. Looking back, his legacy isn't defined by any single genre or era, but by the consistency of his presence, steady, relatable, and quietly memorable, in a way that continues to resonate with audiences. Ed Buckbee is remembered for his lifelong commitment to sharing the story of space exploration and inspiring future generations. As the founding director of the U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, Alabama, he helped transform it into a world-renowned destination, celebrating NASA's achievements and the history of human spaceflight. He is also credited with helping create Space Camp, an educational program designed to give young people hands-on experience with science, teamwork, and exploration. Over the years, the program has inspired countless students, including astronaut Christina Koch, who later went on to join NASA missions in space. A U.S. Army veteran, Buckbee dedicated much of his life to public service and education, focusing on making space science accessible and exciting for learners of all ages. His work ensured that the excitement of the space age continued beyond the early missions and into classrooms and training centers around the world. Today, his influence remains visible through the ongoing success of the Space and Rocket Center and Space Camp, both of which continue to encourage curiosity and ambition in new generations of explorers. His legacy continues to shape how space history is shared and remembered across generations today. In the long history of Major League Baseball, Davey Lopes is remembered as one of those rare players whose influence went far beyond the box score. Known for his quick first step, sharp baseball instincts, and calm leadership, he built a reputation as one of the most intelligent base runners the game has seen. Born in East Providence, Rhode Island in 1945, Lopes grew up with strong discipline and an early love for baseball, gradually turning that passion into a professional career through steady persistence rather than overnight attention. He made his major league debut with the Los Angeles Dodgers in the early 1970s and soon became a key part of a dominant infield alongside Steve Garvey, Ron Cey, and Bill Russell, baseball. Throughout his career, he was known for turning singles into scoring opportunities, finishing with more than 500 stolen bases and earning multiple honors along the way. After retiring as a player, Lopes continued to shape the sport as a coach, with teams like the Philadelphia Phillies and Washington Nationals, passing on his knowledge to younger generations. Even in later years, as he stepped back from public life due to health challenges, his legacy remained firmly rooted in the game. Davey Lopes is remembered not only for his speed and skill, but for the intelligence, work ethic, and quiet leadership that helped define an era of baseball. Chuck Norris has remained one of the most respected and recognizable figures in entertainment and martial arts for generations. Known for his unforgettable role in Walker, Texas Ranger, he built a legacy that goes far beyond television screens and action films. Fans around the world admire him not only for his strength and discipline, but also for the calm confidence and humility he carried throughout his career. From martial arts championships to Hollywood success, his journey has inspired countless people to work hard, stay focused, and believe in resilience during difficult times. Over the years, he became more than just an actor or fighter. He became a symbol of determination, integrity, and perseverance. His influence can still be seen in pop culture, fitness communities, and among martial arts enthusiasts who continue to look up to him as a role model. What makes him truly memorable is the balance he brought between toughness and kindness, proving that real strength comes with respect and character. His impact on fans and the entertainment world continues to remain timeless, and his story still inspires people across different generations worldwide. Alan Osman's life was a beautiful example of resilience, purpose, and quiet strength. Best known as the eldest member of the Osmonds, he spent decades sharing music, joy, and inspiration with audiences around the world. Even after being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, Alan chose to focus on gratitude rather than limitation. Over the years, he adapted to life's challenges with patience and dignity, showing those around him that true strength comes from the way we respond to difficult moments. His journey was not only about fame or success, but about family, faith, kindness, and the ability to keep moving forward with hope. Alan also believed deeply in helping others, offering encouragement and warmth whenever he could. Whether through music, conversations, or simply his presence, he continued to inspire people with compassion and positivity. His story reminds us that a meaningful life is not measured by obstacles faced, but by the love shared and the lives touched along the way. Though he is no longer here, Alan Osman's legacy will continue to inspire future generations to live with courage, purpose, and an open heart. On a forgotten desk, a single sheet of paper sat untouched long after everyone had left the room. A name was written across it in red ink, slightly misspelled, uneven, almost careless, but impossible to ignore. It pointed, quietly, toward a boy from California whose life would later seem designed for Hollywood, even though he never began there with that intention. This was not a story that started with fame, or ambition, or even acting. It started with a different kind of certainty: baseball. A family language, a generational rhythm, something spoken at dinner tables and backyard practices long before cameras ever appeared. For Kurt Russell, the world was divided between two futures that seemed equally real at the time, one under stadium lights, one under studio lights. But the desk note suggests something else, that even before the industry noticed him, something in his life was already being recorded, quietly, as if destiny had begun writing his name early and imperfectly, waiting for the moment it would be read aloud. A family where baseball was religion. Baseball was not an activity in the Russell household, it was structure, identity, and inheritance. His father, Bing Russell, had lived inside the sport long before Hollywood ever became part of the family story. Bing's life had already moved through professional baseball and later acting, but the game remained central, almost sacred. He grew up near the New York Yankees' spring training environment and absorbed the culture of the sport at its highest level, forming connections with figures like Joe DiMaggio and Lefty Gomez. These weren't distant heroes in books, they were real people whose stories entered the Russell home like everyday conversation. For Kurt, baseball wasn't introduced, it was inherited. It shaped how he learned discipline, how he understood failure, and how he defined success, long before he understood what Hollywood even was. In that household, a swing of the bat mattered as much as a line of dialogue, and the future felt like something that would be decided on dirt fields rather than sound stages. The Walt Disney discovery. By the time he was a teenager, Kurt Russell had already been acting in small roles, though baseball still felt like the real direction of his life. Then came a turning point that shifted the scale of everything. During a Disney production, he came to the attention of Walt Disney himself. Disney was not casually observing, he was actively evaluating a presence he believed mattered. The young Russell had a natural ease on camera, something that didn't feel manufactured or trained. That impression led to a rare decision, a long-term contract with Walt Disney Productions. For a teenager, it was extraordinary, not just a job, but a system built around him before he had even chosen who he wanted to become. Disney's belief carried weight across the entire studio. It meant roles, visibility, and a steady pipeline of work. But it also quietly introduced a tension that would define the next decade of his life. Whether he was becoming an actor because he wanted to, or because the industry had already decided he was one. A mentor who shaped a way of seeing what separated Walt Disney's influence from a typical studio relationship was not just opportunity, but attention. Disney treated storytelling as something alive, something built on curiosity rather than formulas. He asked questions like, "Wouldn't that be fun?" A phrase that became a guiding principle rather than a casual remark. For Kurt Russell, this was formative. He wasn't just learning how to act, he was learning how to see stories as living structures. Disney discussed narrative, character motivation, and audience perception in ways that felt conversational rather than instructional. He brought Russell into creative spaces most young actors never accessed, including animation departments and early film cuts that revealed how stories were constructed long before release. That exposure shaped Russell's understanding of performance as part of a larger system of imagination. It also created something more subtle, a sense that storytelling wasn't about fitting into expectations, but about discovering what felt real inside a fictional frame. That idea would stay with him long after Disney himself was gone. Two worlds running at the same time. As the 1970s arrived, Kurt Russell lived an unusual double life. On one side, he was becoming a recognizable Disney presence, starring in family-oriented films that reinforced his place as a clean-cut, dependable screen figure. On the other, he was pursuing baseball with increasing seriousness. He joined the California Angels minor league system and played for teams like the Bend Rainbows and later the El Paso Sun Kings, climbing into competitive levels where performance mattered far beyond childhood ambition. Baseball wasn't symbolic for him. It was measurable, physical, and unforgiving. Every season demanded proof. Every position had to be earned. Meanwhile, acting continued to grow in parallel, creating a split identity that few people could fully understand. One world demanded emotional expression for cameras, the other demanded instinct under pressure. Yet he committed to both with equal intensity, as if refusing to let either version of himself become hypothetical. For a brief time, it seemed possible that both futures could coexist without conflict. The collision that ended one dream. The separation between those two lives collapsed during a single moment on a baseball field in the early 1970s. While playing second base in a professional game, Russell was involved in a violent collision during a double play attempt. The impact tore through his throwing shoulder, specifically the rotator cuff, an injury that does not simply heal back to performance level for most athletes. In an instant, the mechanics that had defined his baseball identity were compromised. Recovery did not restore what had been lost, and the reality of professional sport began to close around him. He attempted to continue, even playing briefly in limited roles for his father's Portland Mavericks, but the trajectory had already shifted. Baseball, once a future, became a memory of what his body used to allow. There was no ceremony marking its end, no public acknowledgement of transition, only the quiet recognition that the path he had trained for since childhood was no longer structurally possible. The question was no longer whether he would choose baseball or acting. It had already chosen for him, losing the identity he built first. The end of baseball did not simply remove a career option. It removed the identity that had been built before acting ever became serious. For Kurt Russell, the shift was not immediate clarity, but gradual disorientation. Hollywood still saw him through the lens of his Disney beginnings, safe, youthful, predictable. But internally, something more complicated was unfolding. The sport that had defined his sense of discipline and self-worth was gone, leaving acting as the only remaining structured path forward. Yet even that felt uncertain, because it had never been his primary intention. This is the paradox of many child performers. They are visible before they are fully formed, and then expected to grow into an identity already assigned to them. Russell was now in that transition point, where the industry expected continuity, but his personal foundation had been altered. What emerged was not rebellion, but quiet recalibration, an attempt to understand whether he could build something genuine out of what had originally been secondary, breaking out of the Disney frame. As he moved into adulthood, Russell faced a challenge common to former child actors, but uniquely persistent in his case: typecasting. The Disney image followed him, limiting the kinds of roles he was considered for. He was still seen as wholesome, controlled, and safe, traits that did not reflect his lived experience or internal complexity. Attempting to break that pattern, he began taking on darker, more serious material, including television films like The Deadly Tower, which demanded a shift in perception from audiences and critics alike. These choices were not commercial guarantees, they were strategic redefinitions of identity. Each role functioned as an argument that he could exist outside the framework that had built his early career. But the entertainment industry is slow to revise its impressions. Even as he worked to expand his range, he remained associated with the era that introduced him. The challenge was no longer talent, it was recognition, and whether the industry could update its memory of who he was. The risk of becoming Elvis. In 1979, director John Carpenter offered Russell the role of Elvis Presley in a television biopic. It was a risky casting decision. Elvis was not just a musician, but a cultural symbol with an intensely scrutinized legacy. Portraying him required more than imitation, it required inhabiting a public myth. The reaction from critics and audiences was skeptical, even hostile in some cases. Many could not separate the former Disney actor from the role of a rock and roll icon, yet this project marked an important shift. It forced Russell into a space where performance was judged not by familiarity, but by transformation. Working with Carpenter also initiated a long-term creative partnership that would redefine his career trajectory in the years that followed. The controversy around the role revealed something important. He was no longer operating within the comfort zone of inherited identity. He was actively challenging it, even if it meant being misunderstood in the process. The question was no longer whether he could act, but whether audiences were willing to see him differently. Reinvention through distance and control. Following the Elvis role and his transition out of Disney's long shadow, Russell's career gradually moved toward more controlled, character-driven performances. The shift was not sudden, but it was decisive. He began collaborating more frequently with directors who valued restraint, presence, and internal complexity over traditional leading man expectations. This period marked the slow construction of a new identity, less defined by childhood recognition and more by adult agency. Rather than relying on image, he leaned into adaptability. Each role became an opportunity to remove something from the old perception rather than add to it. In doing so, he avoided the typical collapse that affects many former child stars who struggle to evolve publicly. Instead of rejecting his past, he reframed it as background rather than definition. What emerged was a career built not on reinvention for attention, but on consistent recalibration. He was no longer trying to replace one identity with another. He was learning how to exist without a fixed one. When reinvention becomes a permanent state, what ultimately defines Kurt Russell is not the roles he played, but the unusual stability he found in constant transition. After baseball ended and the Disney framework loosened, his career stopped behaving like a straight line and started resembling a series of deliberate resets. Each phase required him to shed expectations before building new ones, a process that never fully stops once it begins. Even when audiences came to recognize him for more grounded, mature performances, that recognition was never rooted in a single fixed identity. It was rooted in adaptability itself. His collaboration with directors like John Carpenter reinforced that direction, emphasizing presence over persona and restraint over image. Over time, this approach created something rare in Hollywood, a career that didn't rely on reinvention as a marketing event, but as a working principle. There was no final version of Kurt Russell that the industry could lock in, because each chapter subtly revised the last. The boy who once tried to meet Mickey Mantle by auditioning for a film, the teenager noticed by Walt Disney, the athlete whose career ended in a single collision, and the actor who refused to remain frozen in early fame, all of them coexist in the same trajectory. The legend, then, is not that he became something extraordinary, it is that he never allowed any single version of himself to become permanent. The legend that came from loss. Looking back, the defining paradox of Kurt Russell is that his most stable success came from the collapse of his first dream. Baseball did not fail him, it ended him, abruptly and without ceremony. Yet that ending created space for a different kind of longevity, one that did not depend on physical permanence or athletic limitation. The discipline learned from the sport, precision, timing, instinct, carried into acting in ways that shaped his entire approach. What could have been a story of loss became something more complex, a transfer of identity from one arena to another. The industry that once tried to define him ultimately had to adjust to what he became on his own terms. And the quiet note on the desk, the one with the imperfect name, now reads less like a mystery and more like a marker of origin. Before the fame, before the roles, before the myth, there was simply a boy trying to hold on to a future that would not stay still long enough to be chosen.